سبحان فالق الإصباح.
Ding dong. Hello?
Yes, that's right, infidels. You found us here, channelattitude.com, Hameen Media Group, where you get the most real talk, the best reviews of all your favorite wrestling shows from AEW and WWE, Impact, and more, because we're going to break it all down with the best staff in professional wrestling at HMG. So you don't need to go anywhere else, because there's no 5 stars here. There's only $5 face slaps, infidel. Hello, Akbar! So sign up today, channelattitude.com, Hameen Media Group, and join the Hameen Army for the most real talk in professional wrestling. YOLO!
We interrupt this regularly scheduled program with breaking news from Dollar Club Wrestling. Dollar Club champion Rock Hard Jim was viciously attacked by a masked assailant outside of 112 North Midland Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania earlier this morning. Here's security footage that we recovered from the scene. After the assault, we were able to get a few words from the not-so-enthused champion via satellite.
What do you call a man that attacks you from behind? I guess the word would be a coward. Well then what is the word for a man who attacks you from behind? It has a mix. I think the word is little bitch. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, little bitch. Because I am the champion. I am Dollar Club Wrestling. And I make the rules. So on October 27th, at Mischief Night, with the title on the line, you will be there. And you will recognize me.
If you have any information on this masked assailant, please contact your local authorities or email dollarclubwrestling@gmail.com. This is Courtney Bensley from Channel 10 News, signing off.
Hello everyone and welcome to the PWC Extra. I'm your host Jimmy T and my co-host is back. He's evil dose. He's Dr. Jeff Lippman. Welcome back to the Extra. And what a week we've had in the world of professional wrestling.
A whirlwind indeed.
A whirlwind is an understatement. I mean, Extreme Rules with Bray Wyatt returning. That was crazy. We've got the Moxley friggin' re-signing with AEW for 5 years. If there's even going to be an AEW in 5 years, to be fair. Either way, he wins because he'll get paid. And, I mean, where do we start? But I think it's best we start with some Bray Wyatt news. Right, Jeff?
Sure. Let's start with Bray Wyatt news.
Well, let's get into it because we've got all sorts of rumor roundup here, but starting with the first rumor of the day, we get Bray Wyatt's return at Extreme Rules was well received, apparently, Jeff, by WWE officials.
That's a fact.
Well, per Fightful Select, the report also notes that some of the references used in the White Rabbit teasers had to be approved, but otherwise regular members of the WWE creative team weren't involved in them, apparently. Apparently, WWE's creative team were not involved with the build-up to Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. All of that is Bray Wyatt stuff. I mean, that's his work, and he's magnificent on his own. He's really creative, and he's, I mean, if you look at horror films and things like that, he's sort of derivative, but for wrestling, it's amazing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I just hate... I mean, he's put on a fair bit of weight, though, Jeff.
I don't know. We saw him once from an unflattering angle. It's a big man.
Yeah, it's true. Well, anyway, look, we'll see what they do. Apparently he's going to be appearing on SmackDown. I was hoping he was going to be on Raw. They sort of teased us like he was going to appear on Raw, but
Yes, they
he
did.
didn't appear on Raw.
No, we didn't. But
Well,
we got demonic Guy Fawkes type video in the TV, a la black and white Max Headroom.
yeah. Well, what do you think his theme will be? Do you think it'll be the White Rabbit theme?
What do I think his theme will be?
Yeah, like do you think it'll still have the same old ones, or are we going to go White Rabbit?
Well, I'm pretty sure you and I talked about this once. I don't think he's going to have a theme. I think that if he's all of the Wyatt Six, like if he plays all the characters at times, I think he's going to have multiple themes. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's that creepy version of he's got the whole world in his hands. That's probably the one they're going to use. I mean, I think the airplane one is maybe too expensive to license, where the folk song one is probably pretty cheap. So I don't know. I'm waiting to hear. I don't get caught up in music normally like the way some people do. I just hear some things I like that bad than the other, but it doesn't make my day. Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I love like if I like the song, I generally like the wrestler, if you know what I mean. But sometimes the music can really make a guy, man, or
That's
girl,
true.
for that matter.
Definitely, the right music and the right wrestler is a winning combination. But sometimes I like a song, I don't really like the wrestler, or I like the wrestler and I don't like the song. So you never know, and sometimes I think the presentation is exactly perfect, and everybody I know does, but the crowd doesn't seem to care. A la Karrion Kross, I think that entrance and that presentation is freaking amazing, and crowds don't seem to care.
Yeah, I guess so. True. I think that the thing with Cross, I think it's over sort of booked his entrance, if that makes any sense.
I love the whole thing. I don't know what to say.
And I think Charlotte Bordeaux tries too hard, man.
Scarlett.
Scarlett. Did I say Charlotte? I mean Scarlett Bordeaux. Yeah. That's right.
Scarlett is perfect. I have no notes.
Here we go. Well, in other tidbits, we get Wrestling Observer's Brian Alvarez said that there are two reasons why some wrestlers want to leave AEW and return to WWE. First, they have more faith in Triple H leading the way than Vince, obviously. Second, they don't work enough in AEW and prefer WWE's busier schedule, apparently. Do you buy that?
Well, I think it varies. I mean, it's interesting they say they trust Triple H more than they trust Tony Khan, because it seems like they would have preferred to have stayed with WWE all along if it wasn't for Vince, which is possible. The second part only makes sense, and it adds to part A, if a lot of the AEW wrestlers are paid on appearance, like they get paid when they're wrestled, or when they wrestle when they're told to fly in. But there are wrestlers out there. And it's sort of a generational thing, and it's hard for me to believe and fathom. But there are people who they want the accolades, they want to be on TV. They don't take the Booker T, the Scott Hall, the Kevin Nash advice that says, take the check, and if you're in catering, take the money, son. Don't be an idiot. Some of them want to be there. I guess they see this as their path to stardom. Which I would return to them that there might be 15 wrestlers in the history of wrestling that can actually be called stars. But whatever. Do I believe him? Yeah. Do I think he actually has sources? No, I think he's just making stuff up that sounds right, or he talked to two people. He talked to his friend Filthy Tom Lawler, who told me I talked to some of my guys, and that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain about that, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I guess a lot of guys are returning knowing they've got a busier schedule in WWE over
between
AEW.
All the people on Alvarez's network, they've all predicted every possible scenario.
True. That's true. Well, keeping with the Observer, Dave Meltzer wrote in Sports Illustrated that WWE contacted Renee Paquette to return to the company for its recent shake-up to the commentary teams, but apparently she rejected their offer. Do you buy that, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. I buy it. Why wouldn't she want to work with her husband? He just signed a 5-year deal where he's the leader. He's getting a fair amount of guaranteed money. He's still allowed to do New Japan and other international partners, which I guess would include AAA and unnamed partners in the future. It doesn't include the Indies in the United States, which is why he had to drop the GCW title and end his career in GCW or whatever the stipulation was. But sure, why would a husband and wife want to work together and travel together, and they can, drop the kids off with the grandparents, and it's the same every week, and their work schedule is less predictable? Yeah, sure, why not? He's making enough money for the both of them, so why not? They can have sex in hotels.
Yeah, as he says in his book. But what do you think he's on roughly in this new 5-year deal? Do you think he's making at least $1 million a year?
I think that he's probably got to be whatever Jericho and Punk, are or were making. It's got to be near there. Either if it's not in direct money, for merchandise percentages and royalties and other things. But no, I think for sure he's probably making. I think he's probably making at least what Cody wanted to make, which probably be $3 to $5 million a year.
It's pretty good money.
It's damn good money in wrestling. It's damn good money in anything. Well, not Major League Baseball, but for
the NBA,
right? Yeah, but anywhere else, it's damn good money.
Well, PW Insider confirms that the Valhalla Awaits teaser aired on SmackDown last Friday was for the returning Sarah Logan. Fightful says it's part of a plan to slowly reintroduce her alongside her husband Eric and his Viking Raiders partner Ivar. Yay, I'm not looking forward to this whatsoever.
Yeah, swell. I categorize the Viking Raiders the same as the Good Brothers. Damaged goods.
Oh, no.
No one cares. Their best days either nobody saw or way behind them.
I disagree with that. I think the Good Brothers are much better than the Viking Raiders, but yeah, that's just me. But in other news, get this, Jeff. You. It's not just me.
Just said it's just you. I'm agreeing with you. It's just you.
Anyway, Mia Yim is officially a free agent after her Impact contract expired recently, according to Fightful. Does that mean we get a return to WWE, Jeff?
I hope not. She's another zero, but it's not just her. I mean, you have Matt Taven's contract. Vincent's contract is over with Impact. Mike Bennett's contract is over. Maria Kanellis' contract is over the Impact, and now Mia Yim, who's still on contract with. I mean, Eddie Edwards forever because he can't get a job or anywhere else. Sammy Callahan, Moose, and what? Who's the guy? Ace Austin, is that their guy? And Chris Bay is that the entire Impact roster? Oh, and Frankie Kazarian on loan. So cool, awesome. And people say don't sleep on Impact. Why? Who's left? Rhino and Heath Slater.
Rhino, please. Heath Slater looks all right actually right now.
Well, I would have no idea. I mean, is Eric Young still there? I mean, I have no idea. Is James Storm still there?
I didn't see him the last time I watched it, but he might be. But who cares, right? I mean,
I don't know. I asked, so I must care a little. But I mean, I guess I asked a silly question. Who's left on contract with Impact? I mean, obviously they probably have 20 or 25 people on some type of contract, but I joke on Hammerlock Hangover. It's another week, and another person leaves Impact. And if I ever miss a week, or there wasn't 1 week, the next week there's 2. Well, this week there's 5. So I have a 3-week margin of error there.
Well, more on the Jon Moxley contract extension. PW Insider reports that Jon Moxley's contract extension with AEW, the deal was actually signed right around the All Out pay-per-view, apparently, Jeff. At one point, Moxley's deal actually expired, and he worked on a handshake agreement until they finalized the new deal. But there was never any concern internally, and he might have been looking to go elsewhere. So, yeah, I mean, we've already discussed this, but I find it interesting that he signed back at All Out.
I do too. Good timing for him. Good timing for Tony Khan. He couldn't have possibly known what was happening afterwards, or if he did, that shows he's even weaker than we thought before, which is pretty weak. But I knew that his contract had expired in May, so All Out was what, June?
Yeah. No.
Or was it July?
September, wasn't it?
Jesus.
Or was it July? Or was it August? August, September, man. Surely.
Well, okay. that's a long time for him to work on a handshake deal. But I mean, Tony Khan's done that before, where he's had people work just on a handshake deal. I don't know. I always thought he would just sign a 1-year extension, but you know, if they're going to making him the guy, he listen. If he was working a handshake, he worked hard. He worked his ass off during that 4 or 5 months. So if that's the case, good for him. I'm just trying to get the time. Okay, all that was the recent one with the scrum. So yeah, that was within the last 5 or 6 weeks. It was double or nothing. Was the one before that.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been a while, but anyway, look, he seems loyal. I can't see him ever leaving AEW unless it goes bust, and by then he'd probably be done anyway. So yeah, good on Moxley, because even if they don't fucking work out, I'm talking about AEW, he'll still be getting paid. So yeah, it's a long-term contract.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if the company goes bust, the contracts go bust with it. This isn't like WCW where they had contracts with Time Warner and they just folded WCW.
Oh, true. Good point.
I mean, unless Tony Khan personally guaranteed them, knowing that dumbass, he probably did, or would have, but his father wouldn't let him do that much. Yeah, if the company goes bust, those contracts end with it. But hopefully, you got a signing bonus or something up front for his sake.
I'm sure he did. Well,
because AEW is having brutally low ticket sales. I know Full Gear is still 2 months away, but they've sold less than 10%. They sold, as of yesterday, 924 tickets out of over 10,000 tickets that are available for distribution at the moment.
Wow, that's pretty bad, man.
It's terrible.
Wow,
terrible. They usually sell their shit quickly. It's usually the end where they have to play catch up.
True. Well, they're playing catch up right now, but anyway, still on AEW news, we get Wrestling Observer source saying that the issues in the AEW locker room aren't solved, and as the people causing problems were contacted by WWE in some form and now want to leave, but aren't being allowed to. They also express frustration that Tony Khan hasn't done enough to punish the people who are acting out. What do you think about that, Jeff?
It all passes the smell test. I mean, we know we got the conflicting reports about Malachi Black from Malachi Black. You know, we got similar reports from Buddy Matthews. They weren't as concrete. We know that Andrade's been trying to get himself fired. Everybody's saying it out loud now. And so why wouldn't we hear the same thing about, you know, and for every person we hear about, there's probably 5 or 6 others who aren't talking as much. So, yeah, and Tony Khan hasn't done anything. I mean, we still haven't heard anything about the investigation he launched into the bots. So we don't know anything about this investigation. And I guess there's now going to be another investigation regarding Andrade and Sammy. And obviously, you know, Andrade was sent home, but Guevara wasn't, and was in several segments. And in fact, scored the pinfall for his team's victory, which could have easily been reversed. If you insisted on putting it on TV, you could have at least had Jericho scored a pinfall, or they could have taken the loss. I mean, by wrestling, we talked about this once, Wrestling Logic 101, you know, if you think Bryan is supposed to beat Jericho, his team should have won.
Yeah, no, you're right. We did speak about it. I can't remember if it was on the channelattitude.com show or the skirmish, but we did touch on it, no doubt about it.
It was probably Uncaged because it was after Battle of the
I think it was. Right? I think you're right. I think it was Uncaged, as a matter of fact. We've been spending
too much time together.
That's right. We mixed it up with me and Kev on the Machismo just before we did the extra. So check that out.
More like sexy time.
Absolutely. So check that out on YouTube, and on we're also on Facebook Live, Twitter, and Twitch. So check that out before they go on a download in audio form.
My goodness. Yeah, you definitely want to see that.
Absolutely. Anyway, let's move on to the next bit of news, because we get a clip making the rounds from the recent interview with Ariel Helwani. Tony Khan mentioned CM Punk along with EVPs Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks as people who have office jobs for AEW. I guess it confirms it with Punk. Jeff.
What office job does he have?
Oh, who the fuck knows? Probably crybaby fucking job. Who complaining probably even.
Do they even have offices? I know that. I mean, they share offices with the Jacksonville Jaguars. How many people the Jaguars? How much extra space do the Jaguars have?
Who the fuck knows?
I don't know. I think maybe they have jobs and they have offices. I doubt they're in them very often.
Well, yeah, let's just move on from that because who cares about those guys for now? Because Only Lockman has actually been back with WWE for a while and he's working a full time in a coaching role, Jeff.
Only Lorcan, Biff Busick. Oh my goodness, miniature
Yes.
Cesaro, who's not as handsome as the other mini Cesaro, who is working. So Only Lorcan do you think he sees Giovanni Vinci and goes, "I hate you"?
Probably. I mean, shit, who knows? But yeah, that's kind of interesting. But
Do you think the Butch like no sells him? He's like, "Hey, what's up, Pete?" He's like, "Do I know you?"
speaking if you know him, we've got Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, Maria Canales, and Vincent are all believed to have finished up with Impact Wrestling, says PW Insider, and are believed to possibly be joining WWE.
Honor no more. I would laugh. I mean, listen, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. Everybody thinks everyone's going to WWE right now. It's like the reverse AEW fever. They can't
It's kind of
possibly all be
is the
going.
case though.
Well, I don't know. They can't possibly all be going, but I never would have thought the Good Brothers would be. Well, here's the thing about the Good Brothers.
I never thought they would be back in WWE. Come on, bro.
Here's the thing about the Good Brothers. It's consistent with what Triple H has been doing, where he's been righting some wrongs. So, like people who
Right.
probably shouldn't have been cut, or they were given new contracts and then cut like a few months later, so that their entire lives and plans were upended. And he seems to be. It's as much goodwill as it is anything else. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like I wouldn't, aside from the Bray Wyatt stuff, I wouldn't be surprised about Eric Rowan. He didn't deserve to be cut. I don't know. Who's the other jabroni? Jonah. I wouldn't be surprised. He didn't really deserve to be cut either. So I wouldn't be surprised about them. But bringing in people from the outside, I mean, Mike and Maria, they didn't really deserve to be resigned, but you could also say they didn't deserve to be cut after being resigned. But they've said such shit since. I don't know if Triple H will prefer they come on board and it sort of silences those words and make those words meaningless, or he'd be like, they threw shade our way and so they're dead to me. He seems like the kind who will sign people and let their actions erase their words. Of course, the IWC won't remember it. I don't know. I don't really think that Mike and Maria add anything. Taven's a good enough worker. He'd be fine in NXT. I like Vincent. I think he'd be great with the Bray stuff if, in fact, there's going to be, characters, either a faction or if it's my dream of the puppets come to life as wrestlers. But even if not, if he's got backup, faction, that Vincent would be a perfect guy for that. They actually think alike. They have a similar look. It's like Vincent's sort of like a combination of Elias and Bray, but smaller.
Much smaller.
They're both horror buffs, by the way. There's a Garden of Doom episode. It's entitled The Horror King, where Vincent is my guest, and we talk about his love of horror, and we talk about a little bit of wrestling as well.
Yeah,
Just
check
quietly.
it out, right? Just quietly, right here on the PWC network.
Right here on the
But
PWC. That's right.
like I said, we were talking about this off the air. I think there's value in these guys in WWE, even including Matt Taven. I said it right. People have always, you either like him or you really despise Matt Taven. I kind of like him, but I understand everybody's frustration with him because really he's got the look. He's just doesn't have anything else really, if
He's
that makes
fine.
anything sense.
I mean, when he's a heel, he sounds a little bit like The Miz, but he's not as clever. He works okay. He's sort of long and lanky, but they've already got Grayson Waller, Duke Hudson, and a whole bunch of other guys sort of in they've got the two cowboy dudes who get into bar fights, Briggs and Jensen. I mean, they all sort of fit the same mold. I mean, Taven's a little like maybe he could work with them. He's fine. He's a nice guy. He's worked in the business a long time. It wouldn't kill anyone to give him a good payday. But I mean, it's not like people are going to tune in for Matt Taven. He'd make a fine Mercy Buzzard though. Or he's tall enough and lanky enough. He could pull off a Florida shirt. But I think he's from well, not a Florida shirt, but like a beachcomber shirt. But I think he's actually from Massachusetts.
He is. I'm not sure, man.
So I don't think he could do that Bayou thing.
Does it really matter though? Let's be honest.
I don't know. For Mercy Buzzard, who's supposed to be Mercy Whalen, that was what's his name? Dan. Oh God, I can't believe I can't remember.
Spivey, Dan Spivey.
Dan Spivey, right? So he's supposed to be like Cape Fear, sort of southern,
Right.
southeast swampy guy. I don't know. Maybe he can pull it off. I don't know. Listen, Matt Taven's a Melvin. He's Matt Taven, and he's a Melvin.
Well, we'll wait and see. Nevertheless, it's kind of interesting anyway on my part. We've got news about AEW's investigation in the post All Out Brawl, Jeff.
We do. I didn't know that.
Well, apparently shit has stalled due to threatened legal action and one person's refusal to cooperate.
Wait, who?
Sorry?
What? Who threatened legal action?
Doesn't say who, but it says one person's refusal to cooperate per Wrestling Observer newsletter.
That's CM Punk.
So,
who else wouldn't cooperate with the legal
Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be.
legal action?
But as a result, no one has been let go yet, including a Steel. There's also no time frame for anyone to return at this point, Jeff. What's going on here?
Loggerheads. It's obviously CM Punk, because what else would stop it from Ace Steel being fired? I mean, that was the lowest hanging fruit. That was your John Laurinaitis of this situation. That he's destined, and it's only delaying it. I mean, he's still destined for it. But CM Punk is a litigious bastard. I know everyone out there saying Tony Khan has all the money in the world. I'll pay all the money in the world when he just buy the guy off. So I mean, maybe. I don't know what's going on here. I honestly don't. I don't think there were any good guys here. I think Tony. I think there's probably legal stuff going on. I heard Tony's interviews where he wouldn't comment on a bunch of things, and he does that. I mean, and people are saying that he's copying out or whatever, and he just doesn't want to talk about. There's some things he's uncomfortable about, but I think one thing that his dad probably taught him is that people like to sue rich people, and rich people like to sue, and don't say anything that you don't want to be used against you in a deposition or in court. And I think he's smart enough to know that. But I think at the same time, he's looking at the ratings, he's looking at the ticket sales, he's looking at merch sales, he's looking at pay-per-view buy rates, and he's going to see what's happening without all these guys and what he can and can't do without them. So I think everything's in sort of a holding pattern. I mean, I assume they have legal teams looking into this, but they probably really are slow walking the investigation so that when they decide what to do legally speaking, they have all their ducks in a row, or they say, we really can't pin this on anyone, boss. It's best to just settle.
Well, do you think any of these guys will actually return to AEW, or do you think they're all done?
I think there's always a chance that people will return. A, it's wrestling. B, this is a contract and legal dispute. I mean, most legal disputes by far, over 90%, no matter what you're talking about, settle. So I don't think this is any different. And you have a very deep pocket who doesn't really love confrontation. He has said that he doesn't like confrontation. He's borrowing lawyers from the Jacksonville Jaguar staff. I'm sure he doesn't want to pay lawyers fees. I'm sure he doesn't want all of this dirt to come in. I mean, there's literally however many people were in that meeting or near that scrum. There's probably 70 witnesses between wrestlers, wrestling media, techs, event staff, people who work for the venue, ARA or Syntax, whoever is providing the food. I mean, all these different security, regular police. There might even be a criminal investigation pending for some of this. So that's a really long way of saying I don't know. I think everything's in a holding pattern. We just have to wait and see. I don't want to be irresponsible and speculate.
Well, one thing's for sure: this group of guys cannot be in the same locker room ever again. I just don't see it working. I mean, that's it. It's done.
The one question I asked: do I think that they'll wrestle again? If this doesn't get resolved in CM Punk's satisfaction, I think it's 50-50 whether he wrestles again anyway, just because of his age and his injuries, and the way he failed to acquit himself well in the ring. If he can work it out, then I think he would want to show that he has one last run in him where he's not made of cardboard. I don't think this is how he wants to go out. The Bucks and Omega will definitely wrestle again. They're not leaving wrestling. It's just a question of where or when they would go. So yes, if they would ever wrestle again. I think the only question mark there is if CM Punk's body allows him to.
Well, I was talking more specifically in AEW, to be precise. Not retire, but I just think these group of guys just can't be in the same company at the same time anymore. It's just done.
I
Not
I
with
think
CM Punk's attitude, man. He won't allow it.
I think that you're probably right to an extent, but I don't know any of them well enough to know if they can't firewall themselves away from each other and just do what they have to do in the ring, or don't work programs together and just you go your way, I go mine. Um, I don't know, but yeah, I think if I was to bet, I would say CM Punk will not wrestle in AEW again, and Omega and the Bucks will.
Interesting. Well, regarding the Andrade Sammy Guevara backstage altercation, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. One source told the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Chris Jericho backed Guevara and said he did nothing wrong, which led to Guevara not being punished. That source said this was a double standard because the Elite didn't throw any punches against CM Punk and was suspended anyway. Well, we spoke about this, and I actually alluded to it. It was obvious that Jericho had Sammy Guevara's back. I'm talking about in terms politically. He definitely had his back. I could just see it.
Absolutely, but I mean, people are also conflating throwing punches with doing something wrong. I mean, first of all, the Bucks didn't throw any punches. We don't know that to be true, but we do know that they did kick in the door. So it's not like they were sitting around as church, choir boys, and CM Punk attacked them from behind. So I mean,
Right.
not throwing punches doesn't mean that you're innocent. Those. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously Jericho has Guevara's back. He's had his back since day one. I mean, Guevara has been, in some ways he's a highlight reel, if you want to look at the right places, but he's also a disaster reel and a botchamania reel if you want to look at the wrong places, and they're evenly split. But personality wise, he's been terrible. He almost killed Matt Hardy a few times. He almost killed Ruby Soho recently. He had the issue with Sasha early on where he got suspended. He got into the thing with Eddie Kingston, though Eddie seemed like a little bit of a snowflake about the whole thing. But I don't know what locker room decorum is. I don't know what the wrestler etiquette is or was. And now we got into this one. So I mean, he's sort of the common denominator for everything. So, and we know that Jericho has a disproportionate amount of stroke. I mean, I think that Jericho is sort of Tony Khan's security blanket, and I think he just bought Moxley as a second security blanket.
Well, funny enough, apparently Andrade hid in the hallway, waiting to ambush Sammy from behind.
Yeah,
That's the word on the street, man.
One thing about Andrade that we've sort of seen, and he does seem like one of those guys that's perpetually unhappy. Like he was unhappy in WWE. He wanted to. I mean, he's the one who asked for his release, and it got granted because he had the Charlotte power. And now he's unhappy and he is being booked like shit. I don't know what he's getting paid. I mean, he looks like a clown on there, so I don't blame him for being unhappy. But he was unhappy before. I mean, FTR, they're perpetually unhappy. There's like a list of them. Miro seems to be perpetually unhappy. Everyone can't be Roman Reigns or John Moxley, sort of always at the top of their various promotions.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree. Let's move on, though, to apparently WWE's decision to drop Elektra Lopez from Legado del Fantasma apparently was made no earlier than Wednesday, Jeff. She was originally supposed to join the group on SmackDown this week, but those plans obviously changed now that Zelina Vega is back in WWE. Do you believe in that, or do you think they were going with Zelina Vega all along?
I don't know. But Zelina Vega didn't leave WWE since she came back. I mean, she had ab surgery, but she looks great. I think Elektra Lopez's problem is that she's not that great a wrestler. She's an okay talker, but she's too big for Legado del Fantasma, who are three pretty small guys. Zelina Vega is a tiny woman.
She's thick, bro. She's thick. Come on.
But she's also tall, and she's the same size as the men. Zelina's not. So she gives the illusion that they're big men. And Zelina has more individual charisma, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I don't think this was always the plan, because otherwise, why would Elektra have gotten into the Suburban or the SUV with Not Andrade Santos, when he said to Legado, "You think I'd leave without you all?" And they all got into the Suburban together. Now, maybe they make her Abby the Witch, or
No, no.
bring her along. I don't know. I mean, listen, she was good for the act, but if she got cut tomorrow, is it a loss to the pro wrestling world? No. Is it sad for her? Yes. But would anyone else rush to hire her as a wrestler? Probably not. She's a subpar wrestler, and that's why they tried to make her a personality.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. Well, in other news, Meltzer says that Daniel Cormier isn't committed to any dates with WWE beyond Extreme Rules. That doesn't surprise us, right?
No, especially not after we saw him. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we had the discussion where you were trying to tell me how he's a UFC legend and he's a real star. I'm like,
He is a UFC legend, bro.
all
Come
right,
on.
see, I don't care, but but after seeing him, how he looked, I mean, he basically looked like Homer Simpson. So I mean, I'm sure there's zero interest after seeing that dad bod. And everyone's like, yeah, him against Brock Lesnar. I'm sure at this point, be like, nah, no thanks. So fine,
Well,
good, hard pass.
Apparently WWE were interested in him a few years ago, so I don't know, man. We'll see.
I
That's
mean,
still...
listen, there's photographic evidence of what I look like a few years ago versus what I look like now. The years are not always good to us, especially when we get older.
That's true, unfortunately, yes. On a YouTube gaming stream this week, Ronda Rousey said she wanted to use Legos in her Extreme Rules match with Liv Morgan, but apparently AEW did that recently, and they didn't want people to think that they were copying, so they didn't go through with it. That was from her mouth.
Okay. I mean, if that's going to be the resistance, you're going to have a lot of problems because AEW does everything every week. I mean, they go through 10 years of stipulations in 4 months.
True. That's so true. Well, another insider says that Becky Lynch was backstage at Raw this week, which has led to some speculation that she could be progressing ahead of schedule on her recovery from injury, Jeff.
Good. I don't know why her being backstage fuels that speculation other than people just like to speculate. I mean, why wouldn't she be where her husband works on one of his big nights? I mean, maybe they got the grandparents to watch the kids for 5 or 6 days, and they decide to spend some quality hotel time together without kids crying in the middle of the night. I mean, and they had Extreme Rules, and then they have this show, and they got hotels and catering, and then they're friends. So why not live it up? Now, if she's ahead of schedule, great. Becky's terrific. So we could use her back. We could use Charlotte. They could use her back. They could use Scarlett back. Charlotte. Now you have me doing it. Sasha, Naomi, any day now, whenever you're ready, ladies. So it's all good.
Yeah. Well,
I'm still waiting for that Thursday night all women's wrestling show.
Well, speaking of women, we have a news tidbit about Soraya's segment on last week's AEW Dynamite. Meltzer said obviously she was cleared to wrestle. So I don't know if you want to call that news or not, but she was apparently cleared a long time ago.
She was cleared by Dr. Michael Sampson, who is the Jack doctor that you see near the ring, Doc Samson, they call him, which is a throwback to the Marvel comic books, the Hulk's friend Doc Samson, who was also jacked. But but it was also revealed that WWE doctors wouldn't clear her and Impact doctors wouldn't clear her. So fingers crossed for Saraya.
Fingers crossed for Saraya, indeed. PW Insider, though, pushed back on the rumor that Jeff Hardy is returning to AEW soon. The site notes that Hardy is not expected to return from his suspension until his legal matters are cleared up and he's shown he can maintain sobriety.
Good. That's what should happen, because I know his pretrial was just delayed at a request of the defense counsel, and that probably means that he's undergoing more treatment or doing more things or whatever it is. It seemed like he was out of rehab, but maybe he needs to go back in. I don't know. But whatever it is, when the defense asks for a postponement and waives their right to a speedy trial, it's not usually because they're trying to collect evidence. It's usually because they're trying to do what's called mitigation, which is to get him into some sort of in-depth, stringent structure, treatment schedule, something to make the court think that it's going to stick this time because he has a bad record. And not for nothing, if he's convicted of anything, probably even of any of the underlying tickets in Florida, he's probably going to face violations of probation in North Carolina as well. And who knows where else he might have parole and probation situations. So yeah, and I don't blame him, and they should wait for him to maintain his sobriety. They shouldn't pull the trigger on him right away. Nobody needs to see Matt Hardy in the ring, period. No one, seeing the Hardy boys together isn't that great. Jeff Hardy didn't bring a lot of new eyes to it. So, if all of the bad stuff that's been happening and surrounding AEW outside of the ring is any lesson, maybe it should be a lesson to Tony Khan to why don't you just try to book wrestling shows with the talent you have and not try to worry to sort of spot fest us all, in the show and sort of through debuts and faux partnerships with indie wrestlers and other promotions and things like that. Just focus on your shit and your product.
Good point. This next news tidbit though, Jeff's going to get you giggling for sure, because apparently Bandito actually hasn't signed a deal with AEW yet. So get this, in an interview he did with Mas Lucha, Bandito said he's still in talks with AEW, but has also received an offer from WWE. Haha.
How do you make that laugh in Spanish? Good, very good, very nice. Well, good for you, Bandito. I mean, if there was ever someone that I'd be surprised about to get a bidding war, you're it. Not that you don't deserve it. It's just there's a lot of luchadors out there, but good, make them pay. I mean, personally, I think that AEW has more than enough people on their roster, and a lot of luchadors also. WWE's getting pretty cluttered too, but they don't have a lot of luchadors, and one of them is really old, and one of them is his son, who's not really a luchador. And Legado del Fantasma's entire act is that we're not luchadors. So,
sure,
he'd be sort of unique. And in NXT, they've got this, a lot of these British, sort of lucha style wrestlers, the Nathan Frazier's, the Wesleys, Axiom. So he'd actually probably fit in really well. And I think, again, I think that he and Dragon Lee in any promotion are the two best luchadors in the world, and neither one of them is signed right now to anyone.
Well, look, I've got a feeling he will end up in WWE, in my opinion. He's playing hardball right now with AEW, as he should. You know what I mean? I mean, even a hug didn't work for TK to bring over Bandito, which I bet he's been trying to sign for a long time now.
Well, Tony always says that something. I mean, you can never believe anything. That's why I don't really believe him with John Moxley. It took him so. Tony never tells you the truth about timelines. His timelines are always false, or he's confused because he's on cocaine. What? Huh? Who said that? Maybe it was the hug that turned Bandito off. Maybe Tony has very bad breath.
Maybe that's a good possibility. Well, Meltzer also mentions that Takeshita should be back in AEW in a couple of weeks, Jeff.
How does he know he's with AEW? Isn't he still with DDT? Can he be a bidding war, or is he going to be on loan to AEW?
Who the fuck knows, I guess, and who the fuck cares, really?
I mean, if he's off his DDT contract, that's interesting, but if he's just on loan to AEW, I mean, he puts on good matches, but he's going to be the pin eater in 8 out of 10 matches he's in, because that's his role. He's on loan talent. If he signs an AEW contract, I mean, why not? But I don't know. That wouldn't be my move if I was Takeshita. I would probably try to sell myself to WWE as, hey, Nakamura isn't getting any younger.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. In other news, though, apparently during an interview with Mas Lucha again, that stirred up issues with Sammy and Andrade, and with Sammy, Andrade said Charlotte Flair is taking time off from WWE for personal reasons. Interesting.
Okay. Maybe the personal reasons are her husband keeps getting into fights, or her father's a dumbass. I mean, obviously it's not because she's pregnant, because they're promoting her coming back. So, yeah.
True. Well, apparently also Montez Ford was seen wearing a walking boot on this week's Raw while the site didn't know if the injury was legit. Fightful heard WWE's prop department brought in the boot on Monday. Is this legit or is it not, Jeff? I'm confused now.
Well, I asked you the same question last week when we did Machismo because he was wearing, or maybe it was Smack Talk because he was wearing the boot. I think it was Smack Talk that he was wearing the boot during, and you thought it was a work, but if it's on both nights and he wasn't on TV, I'm going to go with it's a shoot. There's a real injury. Why else would they be off TV? If it was a work, you use it as part of your storyline.
Yeah, I agree. Also, we get another interesting sort of tidbit with Was, which I suspect is a German publication. Ludwig Kaiser pushed back on the rumor that WWE was planning to bury Gunther on television shortly before Vince McMahon's resignation from the company in July. Kaiser said there was no indication that Vince was changing his mind about Gunther. Do you believe that?
I believe that there was no information with that. I mean, he won the Intercontinental Championship under Vince's watch, and he was portrayed pretty damn strong in NXT, and I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any reason to believe that. I mean, I know that would be like something that the IWC would love to believe. Vince bad, but Vince has been gone now 10 weeks. Vince bad,
True.
it's like
Already.
it's like a shrug already. Who cares?
I agree. According to the Wrestling Observer, once again, Kenny Omega's contract with AEW expires on January 30th, 2023. However, AEW has the option to extend that date by 9 months until the end of October because that's how much time he missed due to injury. Right. Do you think he would extend it, or would he let Kenny, see if the grass is greener on the other side? What do you think will happen?
I think he will extend it.
Just to be a prick?
I think to keep his options open.
Jesus. Well, I'd rather let him go. If he doesn't want to be there anymore because of you, TK, just let the guy go, but we'll see. Also, in other news, NXT stars Josh Briggs, Brooks Jensen, and Fallon Henley all competed on this week's main event taping and defeated main roster talent, leading to speculation that WWE will call them up to Raw or SmackDown very soon. Are you happy with that, Jeff?
I like Briggs. I like Briggs. He's a big, burly kind of guy, sort of a throwback cowboy type. He's not as big as JBL, but he sort of has that in him, sort of like a Blackjack Mulligan, Swede Hansen, Stan Hansen kind of build. He's young. I don't necessarily like the way he outfits himself now. The other guy, Jensen, on the other hand, he's got nothing. There's nothing going on there. His look is terrible. He's got the baby face. He's got the stupid gas station attendant mustache. He's got no build. He's got, Fallon Henley's fine, but there's nothing. I mean, I don't know. I think they're just having people work, but no. I mean, you brought back the Good Brothers. How many teams do you need? I don't know. It makes me unhappy. I would like Briggs to have a different partner. Like, I know they're all like crazy about Von Wagner, and so put Von Wagner with Briggs. That would be an imposing team.
Yeah, true. It would be. Still sticking with Meltzer and breaking his news.
Sad though. Like Jensen apparently is from a wrestling family. His father was a WWE wrestler. Do you know who that was?
I don't remember, man.
Okay, me either. Sorry.
We'll have to look that up. I'm sure it's there. Wasn't it Matt Bloom?
No, that's Von Wagner's father.
Oh yes, you're right. That's true. Anyway, we can Google that, I guess, and find out. But Meltzer said that's true. Meltzer said Andrade is not on good terms with AAA last year. There was a plan for Andrade to win the AAA Mega Championship from Omega, but it didn't happen, perhaps due to a financial disagreement, Jeff.
But isn't that also a match that Omega couldn't make because he was injured?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, did he get stripped? Well, Meltzer also added that Andrade has interest in wrestling for New Japan Pro Wrestling, which isn't possible if he is working with AAA due to the political situation between NJPW and CMLL and AAA. Which is so silly, dude.
I mean, I know that last part is true, but Andrade wanting to work in New Japan and wanting to leave AEW. I mean, he wouldn't be able to work for New Japan if he went back to WWE. So, I mean, if Andrade said, "Yeah, I'd like to work with the talent in New Japan, and I'd like to go to Japan and work with those guys," I mean, of course you keep all your doors open, but I mean, I think if you were to put him under sodium pentothal and say, "What do you want to do?" Yeah, I want to stay right here in the U.S. and I want to go back to WWE and be with my wife. I think that would be the answer, unless the personal issues they're getting divorced.
I wouldn't surprise. They did split up for a little while, also at one point, if you remember.
I don't really keep up with their personal lives unless I can't
Well,
avoid it, like Ty Conti, Ty Mello, and Sammy Devar. I mean, they're all in your face.
true. Well, Meltzer also stated that the Young Bucks' new sneaker deal, as according to Meltzer telling Wrestling Inc., that AEW originally planned to promote it hard on TV, but that didn't end up happening due to their current suspension from the company. Well, typical. Wah, 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 wah. Anyway. Well, in other news, and also, there's chatter about AEW's fortunes has increased after Dave Meltzer wrote on the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the company's advanced ticket sales do not tell a good story at all, and said on Wrestling Observer Radio that people have been saying they, AEW, went from their own identity to being guys that WWE didn't want. You keep bringing in these WWE hotshot guys for a rating, and it's almost like TNA was, if you remember, Jeff.
I mean, this is what we've been saying almost from the beginning. And in the beginning, we gave them passages like, "Hey, they need 6 or 7 wrestlers who know how to wrestle, who know how to work on TV, and are safe." But then they went from 6 or 7 to 10 and 12, 15, 20, 30, 40. It's ridiculous. So no, they're TNA on steroids. They're WCW on steroids. I mean, I've always said that AEW feels like WCW 2000, in fast forward. So
Maybe 99 it feels like, sort of. Very
welcome
up and
Dave.
down.
Welcome Dave Meltzer to recognizing this three years later.
True. Meltzer. Well, following their angle on last week's SmackDown, PW Insider reports Max Dupree is again listed as LA Knight on WWE's internal roster, while Marseille and Mansoor and Maxine Dupree will keep working the Maximum Male Models gimmick.
Well, he said so. He said so himself on SmackDown. He said, "L.A. Knight."
Yeah.
I guess I don't know how he's going to explain that Maxine isn't his sister, or maybe or that never happened.
Right. I mean, they shouldn't have gone there with Max Dupree in the first place, but they did.
But they did. But yet they did. So is her real name Maxine Knight, and she changed it to Maxine Dupree for marketing purposes? I mean, we'll probably never hear.
I don't know how to explain that. You just, I get it, needed a net, but it was lazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
but good. LA Knight's back. That's better.
For sure, I agree, man. 100%. At the time of Cody Rhodes' injury, Jeff, apparently WWE sources told Fightful Select that Vince McMahon hadn't solidified plans to have Cody win the WWE or Universal titles. McMahon was completely committed to Roman Reigns as double champ, and there was no sign he was ready to move on from that plan, apparently, Jeff. Do you buy it?
I don't believe anything that anyone is saying about Vince McMahon and what his plans were.
True. That's true. It's just rumor and innuendo. But nevertheless, we report it. Doesn't mean it's true. Speaking of other bullshit.
We're repeating it. We're not reporting it.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, we're not reporting it. We're just reading out what's going on in the wacky world of professional wrestling in terms of dirt sheets. So, yeah. But anyway, while Brandy Rhodes did work some matches, apparently, Jeff, at the Performance Center recently, Fightful says she doesn't have a WWE deal yet, and Warner Brothers Discovery have also reached out to her last month. But the site doesn't know what about, Jeff. What could it be?
Roads to the Top as a single? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have no idea, but she's a beautiful woman. There's things you can do with a beautiful woman on TV. She has screen time. She knows how to look into a camera without stuttering and without moving her head around and like that. So there's a skill to that. We're doing it right now, and my head moves around, and I look around, and I do and I blink. So listen, why not? Why wouldn't you? And then I'm sure it's cheaper than getting Mila Kunis to do a show for you.
Oh God, yeah, right. And our last sort of bit of news, like our last sort of bunch of news, claims Goldberg will not be working the upcoming Crown Jewel event in November, but Brock Lesnar is currently scheduled to work the show.
He's going to wrestle Lashley. I think that was made clear as day last night on Raw.
For sure, I agree with that 100%. Also,
And
Johnny
Lashley will
Gargano
finally get his win. He'll get his legit win over Brock
I
Lesnar.
bet you he won't. I bet you he won't. And I'm pissed about that. You think? I don't think so.
Yeah.
No way. Not in Serbia, man.
Yep.
I just don't see it. Well, we'll see. But Johnny Gargano is well regarded within the WWE for how he handled his exit and free agency. Fightful Select, they also say that's per Fightful Select, by the way. They also say that even before Triple H took power, there was interest in bringing him back and onto the main roster, Jeff. Do you buy that? I don't know if I do.
I don't know, but all I know is that the crowd last night at Raw felt the same way about Johnny Gargano that I do, and that is that they don't think about him.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, AEW has a massive interest, or should I say hard on, in this sort of vein, as apparently they got big interest in bringing Drew Robinson back in as often as possible and actually making him into a regular on AEW television per PW Insider. Swell.
Just what they need, another wrestler. I mean, yeah, fine. Clutter up your roster more and pretend that it's Forbidden Door with New Japan. Just keep going.
It's all good.
It's fun. It's all fun.
It's fun. It's all fun. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson's a good wrestler. He's got a little size on him. Whatever.
Well,
there's plenty of time for all 197 of their wrestlers.
For sure. The Wrestling Observer newsletter also reports that Gabe Sapolsky's new role with WWE is as creative team consultant for the main roster. Jeff, is he going to be as much of a consultant as Triple H is? Would he even be listening to him?
I don't know.
Who cares? Also, Wrestling Observer reports... did you want to say anything about it?
I know Gabe Sapolsky was involved with Ring of Honor in the early days, and I know that he did Evolve for a while, and people loved Evolve, but the same people who love Evolve are also the same people who love Johnny Gargano and love Ring of Honor from 2005. I don't know if he still can tell stories. I didn't watch Evolve, so I don't know if he can do wrestling stories, and if he can be a continuity manager. They desperately need that. So someone to handle things like, how do you explain the Maxine Dupree in LA Knight are not really brother and sister? They are, but they have different names, or whatever it is, or make the decision. Yeah, it's not a big enough story. Nobody cares.
Well, remember Jason Jordan and Kurt Angle? I mean,
exactly. I mean, all sorts of things, and this is not just a WWE thing. These things get dropped in the AEW and lots of wrestling promotions, and drive some of us crazy. And people still are talking about who were the ninjas and who hung Sami Zayn upside down, and what happened to Shaquille O'Neal in the ambulance, and in that match. So I don't know. I mean, do I think he's going to have as much influence as Triple H? Of course not.
For sure, facts. Also, the Observer touched on Tony D'Angelo's injury. The last word was that he would be out for 6 to 8 weeks, apparently, Jeff.
Yeah, so it didn't look like it was storyline. So apparently it isn't storyline, but 6 to 8 weeks isn't a terrible injury. Sounds like maybe a strain, not a sprain. So tough break for him. This is the second sort of minor injury he's had to a joint. He had one with his elbow when they were doing the cactus, the grapefruit loop there. Hopefully he's okay.
Hopefully.
What else to say?
Well, yeah, true. There's not much more to really say other than what you just said. But last but not least, Jeff, we got Carl Anderson has at least one New Japan date left returning to WWE. Reports went around yesterday afternoon that Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows will be making their way back to WWE to stand by AJ Styles' side. Since the trio had recently been doing something in Washington, D.C. And since Anderson is the reigning never openweight champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling, the assumption was that the Good Brothers / OC duo wouldn't show up on Raw for at least a few more weeks. But now we know that that assumption was wrong, making an ass out of you and whatnot. Because Gallows and Anderson showed up on last night's episode, teaming with Styles to kick the Judgment Day's asses and send Finn Balor running like a scalded dog.
It's interesting.
Jeff.
I mean,
there's more.
I don't care about the Good Brothers, but it's interesting that they brought them back. We talked about it earlier. It's interesting in what it says about the lack of power of Kenny and the Bucks and Don Callis and that whole group. Probably Adam Cole and the Red Dragon. I mean, I'm sure they were all friendly. Nakazawa, the whole bunch of them. But it is interesting that Triple H is bringing people on and letting them honor their commitments. I mean, it used to be WWE. You either finished your stuff and then you came to us, or not at all. And Anderson was the never open weight championship, something like that.
Well, there's a bit more here. Apparently, it goes on to say Gallows will be wrestling on this week's episode of New Japan Strong. It's a timely bit of promotional luck, but the match was taped last month, so it doesn't really tell us that much. But the bigger issue is, though, Jeff, is Anderson and his title. New Japan updated the card. He's supposed to defend the belt on this morning, and his match with Bullet Club's Hikuleo is still listed second for November 5th Battle Autumn in Osaka. Presumably, Anderson will drop the title there and focus on being a WWE superstar again. Under Vince McMahon's leadership, it wasn't unheard of for a newly signed wrestler to finish their commitments elsewhere. This is probably just Triple H allowing Machine Gun to do the same thing. But if he did allow the Good Brothers to continue to work sporadically in Japan and after their Impact contract expired, Anderson told Sports Illustrated that he and Gallows had verbally agreed upon dates with New Japan Pro Wrestling for an extended period of time. It would certainly send a message to future free agents weighing a decision between AEW and WWE.
I don't know. I don't know if this is just a one-time thing or if it's more than that. It's fun to game plan it out and to speculate that all of a sudden Triple H is going to do the whole Forbidden Door and all of that. People said, you read there that it wasn't unusual for Vince to let that happen. I mean, it wasn't unusual for Vince to let that happen in the 80s. Right. I don't think about more recently than that. I could be wrong. I don't really know. But I don't remember ever hearing, him being a big softie. Back in the day, the territories used to be much more cooperative that way. And in fact, help each other by loaning out talent and trading talent when they got stale, or when there was an injury angle or whatever. But Vince, basically, since the late 80s on, has been doing everything he could to build a monopoly. So I can't imagine that was a recent thing. I don't know if Triple H is, I know that he wants to create more of an international footprint. I can't see him doing that because his plan is to do NXT Europe, NXT Mexico, and NXT Asia, which I'm sure will be headquartered in Japan. So why would he want to have good relations with New Japan unless he thinks he can pry them away from AEW? And even then, why would he really want to? Why would he care? I don't know. I think they're just letting the guy do one more bout, or it wouldn't surprise me if Anderson couldn't do it and he got stripped of the title and New Japan just made a different match. Give it to Juice Robinson.
Oh, no, please not. But I think, Jeff, we've covered all the major news of the week for now, man. I think, unless there's anything else we've missed. Is there anything else we've missed? Does that cover everything?
I think of note that there was a DX reunion without Billy Gunn. Apparently permission was asked and it was denied by Tony Khan. And that there's more people outwardly speculating or talking about AEW withholding injury info and being especially bad about talking about concussions.
Oh, interesting indeed. Well, Jeff, tell them where they can find you, man.
You can often find me here on the PWC, next to Jimmy T over here. My Twitter is right below my both of my chins. And you can find my other wrestling podcasts with Big Daddy Cool. It's called Hammerlock Hangover. It is here on the PWC as well. And my non-wrestling podcasts are Garden of Doom and Garden Views. This is a very special Spooktober, celebrating Halloween all month long. Kicked it off with an interview with a voodoo priestess. We've done scary, spooky tales from Asia. Tomorrow probably spooky, scary tales from Africa. Had someone talk about cannibal giants in North America around the Great Lakes this past weekend. And that's just the beginning of all the spooky stuff. We recorded a show on Nazis and the occult. That's right. I also recorded a show with Garden Views, which was more topical on death and taxes and estate taxes, which is very scary. But you know what? I may push that into November and just stick with all the fun, scary stuff. You can still get scared in November about taxes.
Ah, damn. And before we do go, actually,
you were looking forward to the taxes show.
I am actually, no doubt about it. But before we do go, I just wanted to point out, did you watch GGP, our boy GGP, Greek God Papadon, on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation this week, Jeff?
The answer to that is no across the board. I don't know what a GG Papadon is. I don't watch AEW Dark. I don't watch AEW Dark Elevation. But you know what we did forget to mention is that, wow, Women of Wrestling, the ratings of their first 2 weeks have come out, which is just an aggregate of all of the syndicated stations. But in week 1, they did 281,000 viewers. In week 2, they did 273,000 viewers, which is more than 3 times what Impact does.
Holy shit, that's actually quite good, man. That's way higher than even I would have thought.
Yeah. And by the way, on one of their shows, they had less than 16 minutes of aggregate actual in-ring wrestling. So everyone who's yelling at WWE and AEW said, "Oh, you only have so much women's wrestling," or you might have had 6 matches, but you had 18 minutes of wrestling. You have an entire women's TV wrestling show, and they only had 15 minutes plus of wrestling on one of their episodes. Somebody told them they're trying for more of a Lucha Underground vibe. I don't know. The matches were pretty long in Lucha Underground, so I don't know what they're talking about. I don't watch it, and I'm not going to, so I can't really comment further. I just find it ironic.
Well, we got a comment in the chat by Christopher Paul, and he says, "Do you guys think Jericho will return to WWE, if even just for a Hall of Fame introduction?" Jeff, what do you think?
Yes, but I think at this point it's going to be a while. I think we're talking like 5 to 10 years from now. I don't think the event horizon on that is quick.
Also, he goes on to say Kevin Owens should be the one to induct him, if so. Do you agree with that, Jeff?
I mean, they did great work together, but Chris Jericho has 30 years in this business, so there's probably a lot of people that he's closer with than Kevin Owens that we don't know about. But I don't know, it should be who Chris Jericho wants to induct him. I mean, he had a lot of close friends. Unfortunately, a lot of them are dead, but I mean, I think probably Rey Mysterio is probably someone that should be considered to induct him. I think they've worked together almost from day one.
Yes, that's true. They go way back to the days of Mexico even, actually, Jeff.
Yeah. But Kevin Owens would be great. I mean, I'm sure Kevin Owens will give a fucking uproarious speech.
I 100% agree. And as far as my opinion about Jericho coming back for a Hall of Fame introduction, if WWE were dead serious about it, I think that he would actually come back just to be inducted in the Hall of Fame if TK allows it. Also, Christopher says in the chat, "You guys have become my favorite wrestling podcast. Thanks for the show. Much love, dudes." Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, that's very touching and very good to know. I mean, we are called the podcast's favorite podcast after all, and hopefully everyone else catches on too, because I think we do a mighty fine job here at the PWC Network. But thank you once again. You know what? Let's take it home anyway, Jeff. So please, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at DJ Mass Effects and at the PWC Network. Also, like and subscribe right here at the pwcnetwork.podbean.com, where you can find not only my shows but Jeff's also and ours. And also for $5, subscribe to channelattitude.com, where you can find me and Jeff, or me and Chris, or me and Kev, or Jargo, whoever, talk AEW and specifically Rampage for $5 every Friday nights. Also, please like and subscribe at the HaminMediaGroup.podbean.com, where you can check out all our affiliate podcasts right there, including Jeff's, and at theblowpod.com and the PW Hustle. In saying that, I'm Jimmy T, his Evil Dose, Jeff Lippman, and you've been listening and watching the PWC Extra right here on the PWC Network. See yous.
Stay evil, my friends.